We're not on. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Inter-Neighborhood Council Organization special meeting, Meet the Candidates Forum. This is our third and final forum for this election period. We are glad to have you join us, whether in person or streaming live on the City of Oxnard's YouTube channel or on Zoom. As this is a special meeting of INCO, we will have to take a moment to handle some minor business before we dive into tonight's forum. So as to clear up some confusion for those who are watching on Zoom and YouTube, there is a public comment section where you can speak on items on the agenda only, and that is at the end of the last forum. I'm sorry. Zoom attendees may raise their hand or call in at 877-853-5257. And again, that's at the end of the meeting or the forum. As this is also a special meeting of the INCO, we do comply with our decorum policies. So if everybody could keep that in mind, it'd be wonderful. Thank you for your patience while we conduct business, and we will begin the forum shortly. Madam Secretary, will you please take roll call?
Bartola Square North, Nate Castillo. Here. Bartola Square South, Justin Richards. Blackstock North, Nancy Ron. Blackstock South, Christopher Bissonette. Okay, thank you. Bryce Canyon North, John Hike. Thank you. Cabrillo, Rainey Stephan. Cal Giesler, Teresa Salazar. Carriage Square, Guido Goldner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Here.
Thank you. Channel Islands, Dave Cooper. College Estates, John Beck. Diamond Bar, Dennis Ralph. East Village, Ronald Orejo.
Here.
El Rio West, Daniel Ryberg. 5 Points Northeast, Pat Brown. Fremont North, Dave Ebbett. Fremont South, Kim Winch. Hobson Park East, Roger Poirier. Hobson Park West, Cecilia Ravello. Hollywood by the Sea, Michelle Carrillo. Kamala Park, Robert Lucio. La Colonia, Ramon Lopez.
Here.
Lemonwood, Eastmont, Larry Stein.
Here.
Marina, okay. Orchard Park, Diana Velsey.
Present.
Oxnard Dunes, Lisa Hewitt. Present. Oxnard Shores, Walt Hagdon. Pleasant Valley Estates, Rosanna Biggerstaff. Redwood, Carlos Quiroz. Rio Lindo, Sandy Diaz. River Park, Paul Snibelin. Rose Park, Alfonso Arroyo. Sea Air, Edward Castillo. Seaview Estates, Isaac Calaf. Sierra Linda, Sergio Garcia. South Bank, Debbie Arevalo. Southwind, Sofia Vega. Terra Vista, Christina Thomas. Via Marina, Doug Tauber. Wagon Wheel, Amanda Meir. West Village, Michael Gleason. Wilson, Angela Whitecomb. And Windsor North, Andres Sanchez. We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. Lisa, will you lead us in Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you all for being here tonight for this important candidate forum brought to you by the Inter-Neighborhood Council organization. For those unfamiliar with this organization, we are comprised of the 44 chairs of the active neighborhood councils within the city of Oxnard. We take pride in representing the voices of our neighborhood chairs and the diverse communities we serve. This forum offers a valuable opportunity to learn about the candidates' visions, priorities, and plans for our community. Each candidate will have a chance to share their ideas and respond to the questions submitted by our residents and INCO membership tonight. We are fortunate to have a dedicated moderator for this event who is truly one of our heavyweights in this organization, the chair of East Village Neighborhood, Ronald DeRoyhill. Okay. Under new business, subject, INCO candidate forum, recommendations that the INCO general membership conducts a candidate forum for candidates running for office in the November 5th, 2024 election. Without further ado, let's meet our candidates. Ronald, will you start your opening?
Good evening, Oxnard residents and those watching at home. I am Ronald Arwejo, a member of the Inter-Neighborhood Council organization and chair of the East Village neighborhood. I am your moderator for the position of City Council District 6. We are proud to present both of the candidates for City Council District 6 and with us tonight. The INCO of the City of Oxnard consists of the chairpersons and executive boards of Oxnard's 44 active neighborhood councils, all being volunteers, giving residents the opportunity to participate in governmental decision-making processes and serving as an advocacy group for each of the neighborhood councils. This forum is being hosted by the INCO. As an organization, it cannot and does not publicly support any candidate for political office. This is an opportunity for voters to hear directly from the candidates to get the information they need to make an informed choice when voting. We are glad that all are here to hear from our candidates, and we do hope that the voters get the information that they need. The rules of this forum have been previously communicated to the candidates as follows. Candidates will be given 90 seconds to present their opening and closing statements. Questions will be posed to all the candidates, and each candidate will be given 60 seconds to answer. Candidates may have 1 page of notes to refer to and will additionally have paper to write notes on. We will now begin with the opening statements from both candidates. The seating order was randomly drawn prior to this event. Please take note of the timer before you. The first candidate, Ms. Michaela Perez, will start with her opening statement, followed by Councilperson Arthur A.J. Valenzuela Jr. You can now begin, Ms. Michaela Perez.
Buenas tardes a todos. Thank you to the INCO for providing this resource to our community. My name is Michaela Perez, and I'm proud to run to represent District 6 in South Oxnard. South Oxnard deserves representation that will prioritize economic development, upward mobility, and support for our small local businesses and entrepreneurs in the area. I have 10 years of experience in public policy, program development, and local advocacy. I'm proud to be supported by teachers and principals in District 6, as I do every day, work with our young people in our district, preparing them for opportunities. I've successfully managed large budgets, been on the board of directors for many local nonprofits in the area, and have always centered the voices of our community in all decision-making processes. 6 generations of my family have lived in Oxnard, and my grandparents and my grandmother who just walked in were field workers in this community. I was raised with a strong work ethic and ties to this community, and I know how to get work done for our community, and I'm excited to be here to share more about my vision and priorities for this Oxnard City Council race. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Michaela Perez. Next is Councilperson Arthur A.J. Valenzuela Jr. You have 90 seconds. Please pause for a second. Apologies for the pause. You can begin, councilperson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Arthur Valenzuela Jr. I am the current council member for District 6. I've been doing this work for about 18 months now, and it's been a true blessing to provide for South Oxnard community and the greater Oxnard area as well. So some of the priorities that I have taken forward has been, first off, reducing homelessness. We've seen a 10% reduction over the past year. And so we've been proactive with our urgent tenant protections to keep families together in South Winds, and also been working towards incentivizing affordable housing here in Oxnard. We've also been investing in our local infrastructure in South Oxnard, preparing the modernization of our fire stations 2 and 3 in South Oxnard, in our parks, maintaining them, getting rid of dead trees, and also investing in new water stations for our residents. We've also been repairing our roads, alleyways, and our sidewalks. Health and safety is a big concern of mine, as we've seen resolutions passed to prevent oil wheels near homes and schools here in Oxnard, as well as a potential resolution next week to protect our heart monitor tech jobs here for the quality of life for South Oxnard. And I look forward to continue doing this work. Thank you.
Thank you, councilperson, and thank you both. We will enter the question section of the forum group by topic. The first question will be posed to Ms. Perez, then Councilperson Valenzuela, and the following questions will then alternate between the both of you on who will answer first. On the first topic of Oxnard governance will be Ms. Perez, followed by Councilperson Valenzuela. Your question: the city manager is appointed by the city council and oversees the city's departments and staff to implement council decisions and directives, and manages the day-to-day operations of the city. What grade would you give to our city manager, Alex Nguyen, and why? You have 60 seconds.
Thank you for that question. I would give the city manager a B+. I think that he's doing some excellent work when we think about our employee pipeline initiative. I think that's an initiative that I'll continue to champion once elected. This is something that I do in my everyday job, working with District 6 residents. Many of the stories that we hear is that many District 6 residents do not have the resources necessary and are impacted by, the high cost of living, poverty rates in our community. And I do this every day in my job, making sure that we connect them to their basic needs and have the resources that they need to be successful. I have a relationship with OUHSD, and I think that it's an important partnership that we need to have to make sure that our students have access to educational and economic opportunities for them to thrive. We need to think about the future generation. Our current residents in District 6 are a large population of young people, and we need to prioritize what type of opportunities are available for them to tap into locally.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Our next person is Councilperson Valenzuela. You have 60 seconds.
Thank you. So for City Manager Nguyen, I would give him an A-. And so he has built a significant and effective team. If you look at the timeline for Oxnard, if you go back to 2019, we were at a $9.1 million deficit, cuts to jobs and to some local commodities here in the community. But if you roll to this year now, we are looking at a $35 million surplus projection. I would say that has been very effective for our city and our staff. And even during the most recent rainstorms in December, he was able to work with the Ventura County Community Foundation to get our affected residents resources to help them with the repairs. So I think he's done a great job. And also during our last month meeting, we had about 10 residents show up in support of him. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson Valenzuela. We'll move on to our second question on the topic of Oxnard governance. First to Councilperson Valenzuela, next to Ms. Perez. Your question: Oxnard has 10 citizen advisory groups, CAGs, boards and committees, which are composed of community volunteers dedicated to improving the overall quality of life in Oxnard through focused legislative bodies. Have these CAGs, boards, and committees been effective in advising the city? What, if anything, would you change about them? Councilperson Valenzuela.
Yes, I think the CAGs have been very effective at providing for our community. As council members, we get to make recommendations and appointments to these commissions. I previously served as one for the Downtown Redesign Review Commission and we got to look over, I believe it was the Aspire Apartments, which our students break ground in the next year or so. We've had effective leaders such as muralist Elisa Torres appointed to the Cultural Arts and Megan Salas onto the Community Relations Commission, who just threw a successful multicultural festival. But I think the only thing I would say to change it is we may have to give them a stipend, because on some of these commissions you do a lot of work, especially the Planning Commission, and that was something that was brought to us recently by one of the Planning Commissioner members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson Valenzuela. Next, Ms. Perez, you have 60 seconds.
Citizen advisory groups are really important to the effectiveness of decision-making in our community, making sure that the decisions that are made are reflected and integrating our community's input. I think a recommendation that I would make, District 6 is impacted by a high rate of homelessness in our area, and I think that we need to take a look at how we can support and make sure that our housing commission is activated. I know I had the opportunity to meet with the DA as well as the Sheriff's Department to talk about the fentanyl crisis in our area, and I think that we need to be able to have conversations around wraparound services. In addition to that, through my work as a community organizer working with youth directly, I think we also need to activate our youth commission. I've had conversations with Supervisor Vianney Lopez to also pilot a youth commission at the county level. I think that as we think about our economy and the direction of where our community is going, we need to think about opportunities and jobs that are available for our young people in this community, as well as our residents in the area, for them to have livable wages. Thank you.
Thank you. Our third question will be first for Ms. Perez, followed by Councilperson Valenzuela. According to the 2023-2027 City Council 5-year priorities in the category of quality of life, the #1 priority is to, quote, restore and enhance youth programs and launch the Oxnard Arts Academy for local youth in South Oxnard, end quote. And the #5 priority in the category of economic development is to create a new Zocalo in South Oxnard. Are these relevant and realistic priorities for District 6? What is your vision to getting these priorities realized soon? Ms. Perez.
Yes, these priorities are just as important for our community. As we saw last night with the city council meeting on the survey results from UCLA, we have a large demographic of young people in South Oxnard. Shortly after the election last year, I continued the work to ensure that I answered the questions and listened to the community around economic development and investment in our young people. And I think that the way that we can address systemic cycles of poverty is investing in the next generation of leaders in our community and making sure that they have opportunities to go into the workforce, get the training that they need to be successful in the workplace, as well as educational opportunities. I'm proud to know that many of my students that I work with are going on to do amazing things for the community, and I will always be a champion for our small businesses. They are the backbone of this community, and we need to make sure that South Oxnard has businesses that are thriving for our community to thrive economically. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Next, Councilperson Valenzuela.
Yes, I think it is a big priority to restore and enhance our youth programs for our residents. You know, that's why I know a lot of a lot of folks have been asking us to reopen the Carnegie, which was why I was in support of doing a seismic study for the Carnegie Art Museum so we can reoccupy the building. It is about 100 years old. And, what can we do with getting an arts academy in there? Because it's not just going to be the city that runs it. What other nonprofits and coalitions are we going to build around that to make it possible? And also in regards to a Zocalo at the Centerpoint Mall, this kind of stalled because of the pandemic, like several things in government, but our conversations with the owner of the Centerpoint Mall have included, like, once the expansion of Walmart takes place there, we can move forward and having that discussion. But I've also been supportive of us developing a Saviors Road Business Improvement District and a hub zone for historically underutilized businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. We'll move on to our next topic on the city's economy and finances. Our first question will go to Councilperson Valenzuela, followed by Ms. Perez. Your question: the city's fiscal year 2024 to 25 budget is more than $750 million. What is your experience and management style with finances and budgets? Councilperson Valenzuela.
Yes. So before serving on the city council, I was a student trustee for the community college district, where we oversaw more than a $300 million budget for Moore Park, Oxnard, and Ventura College. Being on the council for about 18 months now, we have seen that we have a $35 million surplus to this $750 million budget for Oxnard. And so far from there is usually the process is we get recommendations from staff, what they need for each department, what they need to utilize, which new positions do we need to make, which ones do we need to we align with communications with the collective bargaining unions, and moving forward, seeing how can we invest that into our community. So whether it be hey, do we have to prioritize our alleyways? Do we have to prioritize our youth services? Or do we have to prioritize public safety? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. Before we continue with Ms. Perez, if I can just remind everyone in the audience, if you could just be quiet so that we can all hear the answers from the candidates. Thank you. Ms. Perez, you have 60 seconds.
Fiscal responsibility is an important piece of the City Council's role, making sure that our projects are funded and that we have the resources and staff to be able to push projects forward. My background, I've worked in various nonprofits where I've had the opportunity to invest and bring in $20 million initiatives to develop workforce development programming throughout the state. And I think that my experience writing grants, working with social impact philanthropic organizations is the kind of lens that we need for South Oxnard. As the city manager stated in last night's meeting, we need to tap into philanthropic organizations that can invest in South Oxnard. And now that we have that data to talk about our social economically disadvantaged communities, we need to be able to work with our state, federal, and local organizations to make sure that we have the resources that we need in our community and tap into diverse funding opportunities for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Our next question will first go to Ms. Perez, followed by Councilperson Valenzuela. The combination of Measure O's half-cent expiring and Measure E's 1.5-cent non-expiring sales taxes have boosted the city's local sales tax to 9.25, Ventura County's largest. Arguments have been made that increased sales taxes hit the lower income households the most because they have less disposable income and thus less flexibility to shift their spending habits. On the other hand, decreased sales taxes would have likely left the city with a continuing structural deficit or reduced services for the population. Have these revenue enhancements been beneficial to both the city and its residents? What would you change, if any, with either the sales taxes or how they are utilized? Ms. Perez.
Thank you. I want to first start off by thanking the residents of the city of Oxnard for casting your vote and using your civic engagement to decide on this measure that we have seen our community benefit from. I know South Oxnard specifically has utilized these funds to cover the cost of our fire stations in the area, and I think that's an important piece when we think about public safety and response times for our community, especially because many of our community members are stretched thin. Many of them are struggling with paying for bills, the cost of gas, the cost of groceries. And so for me as a city council member, having had those conversations, I think it's important that we think about ways in which we support our community. And I think that we need to allow the voters to decide on whether we should continue this tax or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. We'll move on to Councilperson Valenzuela.
Yes. So as Ms. Perez just stated, yes, it was the voters who ultimately decided passing Measure O and Measure E in the city of Oxnard. And we're very fortunate in 2020 that they made that decision to pass Measure E because we were looking at budget cuts and continuing the budget cuts. We were dipping far into our reserves as a city. And so very thankful for the residents for passing that. And what we're looking at now is that $35 million surplus. And a big part of that is because of the Amazon warehouse here in Oxnard. And currently there is state legislation trying to reallocate some of those funds to other cities from the city of Oxnard. So we have to be prepared for when potential legislation affects us. And so I'm very happy to have the residents support Measure O and E. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. We'll move on to our next question to be answered first by Councilperson Valenzuela, then Ms. Perez. A landscape maintenance district is a special financing district created to pay for the costs to provide the ongoing maintenance of public improvements, which provide special benefits to the parcels in given areas of the city. The district provides services solely for the benefit of those parcels located within each district, which range in cost annually from $9 to $982 per unit. District 6 is the only city council district that does not have a landscape maintenance district. Many residents argue that the district and South Oxnard in general do not get adequate landscaping maintenance services. Would you be in favor of supporting the establishment of a landscaping maintenance district somewhere in District 6 to improve landscaping? If not, how do you propose increasing services in the district and generally in South Oxnard? Councilperson, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. So yes, lawn maintenance district is a special district, and as the Mr. Arejo just stated, that District 6 does not have a single special district, whether it be lawn maintenance district, lighting district, or a community facilities district. And that's because we have some of the oldest neighborhoods in Oxnard. All these neighborhoods were developed before Prop 13 existed, and they were developed before Melrose taxes became a thing in California. And so what I have been trying to work with is working with staff to see if we can move forward on a Saviors Road Business Improvement District where we can ask the commercial property owners in order to give themselves a fee to do improvements on our community, whether it be lighting, aesthetics, economic development, and so forth to get that tax base right there. But if a resident wanted to get an LMD started, I would be happy to show them how to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. We'll move on to Ms. Perez.
Yes, I support a landscape public improvement plan. I think that it's long overdue. Many of our community members in District 6 have, discussed the importance of making sure that our trees are trimmed, our environment is maintained, and I think that that's also, it poses a hazard in our community if we're not maintaining the infrastructure of the development of our area. And I think that, seeing firsthand many of the accidents in our community due to the blockage of right-of-ways in our community, I think, is something that we need to consider, especially as our community members and our residents are navigating throughout the city. This affects even people in North Oxnard that are coming to South Oxnard. I think that we need to have a equitable distribution of resources throughout the city and specifically South Oxnard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. We'll move on to our next topic on homelessness and affordable housing. Our first question will go to Ms. Perez, followed by Councilperson Valenzuela. Your question: while primarily managed by the county, what is your plan to improve mental health services as it relates to the homelessness in South Oxnard, particularly for vulnerable populations? How will you address the growing needs of the unhoused population? Ms. Perez.
Again, I think this goes back to the conversation around safety, safety of all of our residents in South Oxnard and throughout the city. We clearly see that throughout District 6, the homelessness issue, and this is exactly why I think it's important to have a seat at the table with our DA, our Sheriff's Office. They are in the process of redeveloping a task force to address a lot of the issues that we see around mental health. I'm a big supporter of wraparound services. A lot of the work that I have done through my Master's of Public Health is around prevention. We need to ensure that we have the resources necessary to support many of the individuals in our community. Just a couple of nights ago, at around 4 in the morning, I had an individual who was housing insecure knock at my door. And I think that many families in our community have children, have property that, and individuals in the household that we need to ensure the safety and protection of all of our residents in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Councilperson Valenzuela, you have 1 minute.
Yes. So for my night job, I usually work as a longshoreman at the Port of Wainimi. I get up anywhere between 2 to 5 a.m. in the morning, and usually when I'm driving home along Savior's Road, I'll see these unhoused individuals looking for support or food and so forth. And it's not safe for them out there, and like as if they are also interacting with other folks. Sometimes it's not safe for other folks either. But as a city, we work with our county partners in order to get them the help they need, whether mental health or substance misuse. And that's why we're so happy to be partnering with the county and Mercy House on opening the Costa de Carmen Navigation Center in May of this upcoming year. And also looking forward to how we can work with the county when they implement SB 43 in January 2026 to when they change the definition of gravely disabled to include mental health and substance misuse.
Thank you, Councilperson. We'll move on to our next question, first answered by Councilperson Valenzuela, then by Ms. Perez. According to the amended Oxnard Housing Element 2021 to 29 and the 2020 California Department of Finance data, Oxnard added 3,468 housing units to its housing stock between 2010 and 2020, resulting in a housing growth rate greater than the overall Ventura County rate and higher than most of the other cities in the county. Between 2010 and 20, the Oxnard housing stock grew by 7%. Oxnard's housing stock consists of 65% single-family and 31% multifamily homes. Is Oxnard building too much housing? Said another way, is the rest of Ventura County relying on Oxnard too much in regards to the county's needed housing? Additionally, should we be building more multifamily housing instead of the single-family housing that makes up 2/3 of Oxnard's housing? Councilperson.
Yes. So we as a city grow faster than any other in Ventura County in terms of housing stock. And I think it shows when you go through District 6, there are multiple families, multiple generations of families living in a single family home. And you see that just by walking through the streets. A house that's supposed to have 2 to 3 cars has 8 to 10. And so I do think that we need to build affordable housing throughout the city. We have the the Teal Club Road project coming through. We are working to incentivize development here in downtown for 4 to 5 story building to follow through with our downtown vision plan. And also, I think when we do that, we have to also make sure we prioritize our staff and make sure they have the needs in order to do the planning and permitting process. Because when we aren't fully staffing them and they are split between planning, permitting, and reviewing the policies, it's...
Thank you, Councilperson. Next, Ms. Perez.
Yes, affordable housing is necessary for our community in South Oxnard and throughout the city. I do want to point that even if we do increase affordable housing, we do need to address the lack of limited wages in our community. Our community is receiving low wages, and I think that in order for them to be able to afford the cost of living, we need to make sure that it's in alignment with the cost of living in this area. I think that's a big area that I'd like to focus on is how do we work together to ensure that we have opportunities here that are local for them to be able to stay and live here. We know many generations of individuals who have lived in Oxnard are unable to afford to stay here. And it actually is also impacting our younger generation as well. I think a big initiative that I'm going to work on is making sure that we partner with our local unions when we do have development projects to ensure that local job opportunities are here for people to prevent longer commute rates in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Next, Councilperson. Oh, I'm sorry, apologize. We'll move on to our next question, first to be answered by Ms. Perez, then by Councilperson Valenzuela. According to the city's Affordable Housing and Rehabilitation page, this division administers first-time homebuyer and home repair programs for low-income residents. City staff also help with the development of affordable housing throughout the city, including providing gap financing to developers of affordable housing through funding from Home, CDBG, and Cal Home, which are reliant on funding availability from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the California Department of Housing and Community Development. What is your knowledge or experience with these funding programs? What, if any, relationship on the state and federal levels do you have that you can leverage for the benefit of District 6 and the city at large? Ms. Perez.
Thank you for the question. I do want to highlight that many of our residents throughout the city, a majority of them are renters, so I definitely believe that we need to increase home ownership in our community. Far too many people are renting, and that is investing in somebody else's pocket when it could be benefiting the household and creating generational wealth for our community. I do have a strong partnership at the state and federal level. I'm proud to be supported by congressional member Julia Brownlee, where I think we can work together on addressing a lot of the issues around housing and increasing housing opportunities and ensuring that there's availability and increased applications. I think oftentimes our applications are, many people apply and there's not, enough opportunities available for people. So I'd like to have that conversation with her on how we can increase resources and availability of spots for these opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. We'll move on to Councilperson Valenzuela. You have 60 seconds.
Can you please repeat the question?
What is your knowledge or experience with Home, CDBG, and Cal Home? Any relationship with state and federal for the benefit of District 6 and at large?
Thank you. Yes, so usually when it comes to our CDBG funds, we utilize that to locate property that we can utilize and provide housing or vouchers for residents so that way they can, get them off the streets into someplace safe. For our local first-time homebuyer loan, I believe it's a 0% interest over the first $30,000 that we provide, and I've been educating residents about some of the opportunities we could do that through our housing authority, and I do have good relationships with some of our federal and state partners. That's why I'm endorsed by State Assembly Member Greg Hart. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. We'll move on to our next topic of arts and culture, first answered by Councilperson Valenzuela and then by Ms. Perez. Your question, what is your long-term vision for the arts and cultural development in South Oxnard, and how will you work with local businesses, the community, and local artists to achieve it? Councilperson.
Yes, so for South Oxnard, my plan really does revolve around getting a Saviors Road Business Improvement District started. I know that comes down to the the commercial property owners along Saviors Road between Iris down to Yucca. But ideally, once we can get that started, if we could put these funds together in the Business Improvement District for murals and artwork along Saviors Road. I think in other parts like on Giesler Avenue, we're supposed to be updating our bike and pedestrian safety plan, and in that we're supposed to be doing artwork along Giesler Avenue as well. I think there are many avenues and also other biking paths that we can implement artwork. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. Next, Ms. Perez, you have 60 seconds.
The culture and arts in our community is the heart of Oxnard. It is the representation, the examples that we see ourselves reflected throughout art in the city. And I'm proud to have family members in this community who are artists doing this kind of work. I think it's important that we invest in state-of-the-art opportunities here locally. As I mentioned, I'm a big champion of making sure that we have opportunities for our local residents to tap into, whether it's making sure that the projects that are being designed are created by local artists, and making sure that they're aware about the grant opportunities that are available at the county level for them to fund a lot of the architecture and arts within our community. And so definitely I think my ability to build partnerships and utilize those partnerships is exactly the type of leadership style that I'll bring to City Council to make sure that we have arts and culture at the center of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Perez. We'll move on to our next question, first to be answered by Ms. Perez, then Councilperson Valenzuela. Has Oxnard sufficiently supported the arts in the city? How will you ensure that the arts are considered a key part of South Oxnard's economic development, possibly attracting tourism and supporting local artists? Ms. Perez.
I think evolution is always necessary. We should always be finding ways to improve and to do better and to be held accountable when needed. I think that local artists have clearly expressed the need to make sure that we tap into those opportunities here locally. As I mentioned before, we have so much talent here in Oxnard. Why not invest in it? Why not have local artists create our murals that are a reflection of our community that young people can be proud of? When they walk by a mural, they can stand for that and understand that we also have a legacy of arts and culture in this area. And I think that that's also a protection mechanism for our neighborhoods. When we have more murals in the community, research shows that you're more likely to protect that community and make sure that there's a lack of graffiti and vandalization. And so I think that that's an area that we definitely need to do more of. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Next, Councilperson Valenzuela, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I do believe we have been putting lots of work into sufficiently supporting the arts here in Oxnard. I think just recently we had the creator of Franklin here for a weekend at Oxnard Performing Arts Center. They also put a new mural up at the Oxnard Public Library right around the corner from here. And I think it's very important that we are able to communicate these art programs with our local artists and muralists to let them know like they have opportunities to do so. We see muralists doing work on local utility boxes and also some of our local schools. How can we as a city be able to communicate this better with our artists? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. We'll move on to our next question, first answered by Councilperson Valenzuela, then Ms. Perez. There is an opinion that large and significant events mostly occur away from South Oxnard. Is this view correct, and would you be in favor of supporting the creation of a cultural center in South Oxnard that provides a space for local events, performances, art exhibitions, and education programs to celebrate the area's rich diversity and cultural heritage. Councilperson, you have 60 seconds.
I would say that I would always be supportive of large events taking place here in South Oxnard. I think the concern or issue is really the amount of land and requirement to draw people together here. Like I said earlier, like District 6, a lot of these housing tracts were developed before there was any necessary for green space or community space in some of these laws that have been developed over the decades. I know it was very unfortunate that the Strawberry Festival, a private nonprofit, after the pandemic chose to go from Oxnard to the county fairgrounds. But I think moving forward, as we develop our aquatic center in the near future, how can we implement that for large community events here to drive people to South Oxnard? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. We'll move on to Ms. Perez.
Yes, that is definitely a top priority of mine to ensure that South Oxnard does have an art center. There's many vacancies throughout South Oxnard, and we need to ensure that we work together to address these dormant businesses that have long existed in this community. I see so much talent in this community around poetry, around arts. In Lakesh, right? There's a mural of Mr. Gomez right there in that community, and I think that we need to amplify that. Our young people are interested in the arts and culture, and there's so much that we can do to invest and to tap into that talent. And so definitely, I think that that is a top priority to make sure that we continue to bring resources and opportunities for South Oxnard youth and families to see themselves reflected in celebrations, in culture, and having culturally relevant opportunities for them here locally. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. We'll move on to our next topic that are unique to this district. We'll start first with Ms. Perez, then Councilperson Valenzuela. Almost all of District 6 neighborhoods border the city of Port Hueneme. What specific collaboration could be improved with our neighboring city to the benefit of both of our respective cities? Ms. Perez.
Yes, we are sisters with the city of Port Hueneme, and as we've seen the port expansion, there's going to be many economic jobs that are available, and I think that we do need to have a working relationship with the city of Port Hueneme to ensure that as we transition into the green economy, that we have opportunities locally, not just for South Oxnard residents, for all of our residents citywide, to have jobs that are tied to healthcare, that are tied to livable wages. And being that I also, see the considerations around environment. How do we protect the environment in that area? And I think with my role sitting on the Climate Emergency Council at the county level, I have that knowledge to be able to ensure that we're thinking about a green transition, but also making sure that we continue to support air quality monitoring. And I'm glad to sit on the CAC to ensure that we're addressing black carbon and protecting the health and safety of our community in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Our next person, Councilperson Valenzuela.
Yes, I think it's very important that we have a relationship both with the city of Port Hueneme and the port of Hueneme itself. That's why I've had conversations with Port Hueneme council member how we can actually, how can we take care of Ormond Beach, whether it be constant beach cleanups or dealing with the housing crisis of unhoused populations residing along Ormond Beach. It's important that we realize that we also have a similar infrastructure with them, which is why we recently worked with them to sell them part of an unused water pipeline so that they can utilize it for their city. That's important, and also be able to work with them when it comes to the carbon pollution at the port. As someone who works there, I always vocalize to my coworkers how important it is that we prioritize health and safety. These environmental hazards of carbon not just affect us here at work, but our families at home too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. We'll move on to our next question to be first answered by Councilperson Valenzuela, then Ms. Perez. South Oxnard has historically seen fewer public investments compared to other parts of the city. How will you ensure that future city investments in infrastructure, public services, and economic development are distributed equitably across all neighborhoods, especially older neighborhoods? like in District 6. Councilperson, you have 60 seconds.
Yes, I think first off, we have to really define the definition between investments, between public investment and private investment. So I would say that we as a city, we're moving forward, we're implementing and putting in speed humps to reduce speeding in our neighborhoods. We are repairing sidewalks, we are filling in potholes, and we are preparing to cement our alleyways because they have not really been repaired since they were first put in between the 50s to the 70s. So that we are working towards that. And our parks too. But then the private investment is going to have to come, if not from our area, it's going to have to come from other areas, like from investors from Los Angeles or San Francisco, in order to get that private investment to build our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. We'll move on to Ms. Perez.
Yes, many residents in South Oxnard for far too long have said there's a lack of investment in South Oxnard. I think that there's so many ways that we can prioritize funding, and I think that we need a champion on City Council that's going to be the voice of that community to make sure that we have resources coming to our community. I think it also has to do with doing the work outside of the dais, making sure that there's investment coming to Oxnard and South Oxnard specifically. I think I've talked a lot about my investment in young people and families and making sure that they have their basic needs fulfilled. And you know, through the last year after I ran in the last election, I did just that. I heard the voices of our community, and I've invested in a nonprofit in my role at working as a nonprofit to ensure that we bring opportunities and resources. We can't focus on the short-term solutions of fixing our potholes. We need to address the systemic roots of poverty in our community, and that is the kind of mindset that I bring. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. We'll move on to our next question, Ms. Perez, followed by Councilperson Valenzuela. You've both already mentioned the Port of Wainimi, also known as the Oxnard Harbor District, which publicizes the events and organizations that they support in the community, such as the City of Oxnard's Heritage Square Concert Series, the Performing Arts Center, and the Oxnard Police Activity League, among others throughout both the city and county. Some in the community believe that the port contributes disproportionately to the negative environmental effects, such as air pollution and increased vehicle traffic. Is the Harbor District a net positive or negative for District 6, and in what ways? Ms. Perez.
I think that as a city council member, it's important that we build bridges, that we work collaboratively to address a lot of the issues that we see in our community, especially around the environmental issues that we see. It's not just the issue around air quality and industrial pollution, but it's also our Superfund site. We need to have a relationship at the federal level to ensure that we remove the Halico Superfund site there. As we see a change in climate, sea level water rising, we need to be very thinking long-term about the ways that we can prevent a lot of the hazards in our community. Far too long, our family members in District 6 have suffered high rates of asthma, are in proximity to these hazardous toxins, and I think that having a seat at the table and working collaboratively to invest and to bring resources and hold, opportunities and centers for local community members to tap in South Oxnard, I think is a way to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Next, Councilperson Valenzuela, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I think the Port of Wainimi, or the Oxnard Harbor District, has been a net positive for our community. If you look at it, it has provided generational wealth for many folks. When I see folks who have had family members work at the port, whether they be a planner that got developed Del Sol High School for Jensen Designs, or they are the deputy clerk to the Board of Supervisors, Miss Mia Martinez, her father was a longshore worker. You see these folks who are, invested in this community and have been able to work through those careers because they come from longshore families. In regards to the environmental hazards, the Port of Wainimi is shooting for 2030 for zero emissions for their vehicles. And also I've been very proactive on being part of the wind power group that Assemblymember Bennett and Senator Limon have been hosting at the Port of Wainimi to ensure green power and good jobs here.
Thank you, Councilperson. Our next series of questions are around your respective campaigns. First question to Councilperson Valenzuela, then to Ms. Perez. You both tout an impressive list of individual and organization endorsements. Some voters do not believe that endorsements should or do matter for how effective a candidate will be in office. Do endorsements matter? Why or why not? What do your endorsements say about you to the voters? Councilperson, you have 60 seconds.
I do think endorsements matter to a certain degree because it shows who is willing to build those partnerships with you publicly, from folks from the Oxnard School District, Wainimi Elementary School District, Oxnard Union High School District, the Oxnard Harbor District. These are folks that I have built relationships with over for 10 years, and I'm happy to have them support me and work together collaboratively to improve our community. I would argue that I have much more Oxnard local elected officials supporting me here than my opponent, but I'm happy to show that I'm here for Oxnard and I'll stand for Oxnard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. And before we continue with Ms. Perez, if we could have quiet in the audience, please, so we can hear the answers from all the candidates. Thank you. Ms. Perez, you have 60 seconds.
Endorsements are important, but I think it's clear that we need to be grounded and centered in our community and the voices of our community. I'm proud to have a tremendous amount of support from local organizations, first responders, medical physicians in the area, among others. However, I do want to be very clear that when it comes to endorsements, there's a process, right, that we have to abide by and follow. And I'm proud to say that many of the people that are endorsing me are not endorsing me because they're my friend or because they've known me for many years. They're endorsing me because they believe in me and they believe in my work ethic and they know that I can get things done and that I can work across the aisle to make sure that we bring the opportunities and resources to our community. And so just know that those endorsements come from hard work. I think that I've spent my entire career working hard and putting the people first, and I think the people in the city of Oxnard know just that, and I'm proud to stand with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. We'll move on to our next question, first to Ms. Perez, then Councilperson Valenzuela. To the untrained eye, based on the campaign websites that you both have published, the issues and priorities that you both are campaigning for look very similar, if not arguably the same. For Ms. Perez, city services, Oxnard's youth, small businesses, affordable housing, and public safety. For Councilperson Valenzuela, affordable housing, tenant protections, and reducing homelessness, health and safety, and equitable resources for South Oxnard. Is it correct or incorrect to assume that voters should not worry as much which of you two gets into the office because you both seem so alike? Basically, is there a difference between the two of you? Ms. Perez, you're up first.
Yes, there's a clear difference between the two of us. I think that when you're elected, you set an example for the community. As I mentioned before, there's many young people looking to us as mentors, as a reflection of this community. And I think that we need to be very clear about who we put on the dais and making sure that we have the support that we need and that we're frequently responding in a fast rate to the needs of our community members and not centering our own priorities. I think that when we are sitting in the seat, we should be always standing with our community when it comes to protecting the rights of our young people, when it comes to safety, when it comes to protecting the rights of men and women in our community. And so definitely, I think that a lot of my work, as I mentioned, speaks to young people and making sure that them and their families have the resources necessary. And I think sometimes when you run for an election, a lot of that stuff can be mimicked, but I think that my resume proves
Thank you, Ms. Perez.
to be just accurate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Councilperson Valenzuela.
Yes, I think there is a clear difference. I've had 10 years of experience of doing the work here in South Oxnard, whether it be being one of many folks who helped prevent a fourth power plant from being put onto Oxnard shores, actually bringing a lawsuit forward to the city to create district elections to ensure that South Oxnard always has a voice. Bringing forward the California Rights Act. Comes from experience right there. And then also working with SCIU 721, FLA, Planned Parenthood, and so many other organizations to create a safe city for our immigrant population and get that passed. We started that in 2017. And so also able to work across the aisle. A lot of folks don't know this, but I was actually the person that moved forward on getting $300,000 for the police headquarters, so we could do a needs assessment, so we can rebuild this police department, so we can respond to our needs.
Thank you, Councilperson. We'll move on to, I think we have at least room for one, if not two more questions. For the audience, if you don't remember, these two candidates, along with a third, ran in a special election a year and a half ago. And so these next 1 to 2 questions are based, copy and paste from there. And so we will see the difference in their answers or if they have anything to add. Our first question will be to Councilperson Valenzuela, then Ms. Perez. The J Street Drain Project is an important element in reducing potential flood risk from Wainimi Road to Redwood Street. Also, in addition to the recent fires and pandemic, there is the ever-growing earthquake threat of the big one. Has Oxnard done enough to safeguard its citizens from natural disasters? If yes, in what ways? If no, what should be done so that we can be better prepared? Councilperson Valenzuela.
Yes, seeing as the city of Oxnard is over 100 years old, we are working towards repairing our infrastructure for any big emergencies that take place, which is why we're investing our capital improvement projects to fix our storm drains systems. And with the J Street drain, we need to work with the county, that is county property, but we have to make sure we coordinate with them when clearing it for any major floods. And for fire and earthquakes, our emergency staff does provide constant outreach to the community to let them know what's the issue, how do we exit the city in case there is a major earthquake or flood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. Ms. Perez, you're next.
Yes, as we've seen in South Oxnard, flooding is a big issue. We literally have lakes throughout the city, throughout District 6 when flooding happens, and I think it's a serious concern for our community. With my lens sitting on the Climate Emergency Council at the county level, that's the kind of response that we need. We need to be able to create plans around flooding. And as I mentioned before, through my relationship at the congressional level, making sure that we have FEMA funding coming to South Oxnard and throughout the city to protect our community in the time of a natural disaster and flooding. I think that, with my support from first responders, including the firefighters as well as OPOA, it's important that we work together to make sure that our community members have timely services and response times for this area. And I'm glad that I can do that work while elected for City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Let's squeeze in one last question. First to Ms. Perez, then to Councilperson Valenzuela. There are complaints of RVs and motorhomes parked unsafely and potentially illegally on South Oxnard streets. Should enforcement be heightened so ordinances are complied with? What are some other or better solutions? Ms. Perez.
Yeah, this is a common condition that we hear throughout our neighborhood councils, and I think that that's an important piece, is continuing to attend city neighborhood councils to hear from our residents, to be able to bring that back to city council, in working with our code compliance as well as our public safety officials to respond in a timely manner. I think that many of our residents in South Oxnard have constantly brought up RVs parked and activities that are happening within many of these vehicles. And so we not only do we need to address the safety of the neighborhood, but we also need to ensure that the folks that are housing insecure, who are living in these RVs, have the resources necessary to be successful in their lives and to get on their feet, to have a roof over their head and economic opportunities available to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. And last, Councilperson Valenzuela.
Yes, this is a common concern I hear from residents, and I usually inform, yes, there is a Oxnard 311 app, and they are able to report it if they don't feel like they get a response. Residents are always welcome to contact me. What we try to do is let folks know where they can get resources, where they can go, because remember, these folks that are occupying the RVs and motorhomes, they're human beings. They need the resources and services in order to get the help to get on their own feet, to have permanent housing. So, but I've always been supportive of these folks getting resources from our staff, whether it be from housing or our police force that is trained to give them these services. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson Valenzuela. And that is our time for all the questions. We will now begin the 90-second closing statements from all candidates in the reverse order of the opening statements. The first candidate, Councilperson Valenzuela, will start with their closing statement, followed by Ms. Perez. Councilperson Valenzuela, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you all very much who joined us here in person. For those of you online, thank you for coming and being part of the civic engagement process. You know, there's a lot of work that needs to get done with this city, and 18 months is just the beginning, and we're just getting started with the work. That's why we've seen that 10% reduction in our homeless population. We're repairing our roads and parks. We are investing into South Oxnard for equitable resources. This is why I'm endorsed by such groups as the California Young Democrats, SCIU 721, SCIU 2015 Caregivers, Planned Parenthood Central Coast Action Fund, and several nurse unions, because I support our public health of our community, and also our community partners, like two of the trustees from the Oxnard High School District, 4 from the Oxnard School District, 2 from Wainimi Elementary School District, and our state leaders like Assembly Member Greg Hart. But I hope I can count on your vote this November, and I look forward to continuing the good work for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson Valenzuela. We'll move on to Ms. Perez. You can begin. A slight pause. Okay, go. Sorry.
Representation is very important to consider when thinking about who's going to represent our community in District 6. And we need to be able to make sure that we look at our scorecards of people that we elect. Representation is important, but we also need to be able to ensure that we're accountable to our actions. And I think that, you know, with this upcoming election, this seat became vacant about a year ago. And, you know, whether or not elected, I think that this seat is an opportunity to redirect in which the city of Oxnard and South Oxnard goes into. I am the candidate that will ensure that South Oxnard is not overlooked. And I'm proud to be the next city council person for District 6 that will prioritize the economic safety and well-being of our community and uplift strong partnerships to be able to get things done. After speaking to so many residents in this community, many residents don't feel safe walking their kids to school and are living paycheck to paycheck. We need to address the root causes of cycles of poverty in our community. And I think the choice is pretty clear. I'm the candidate that will bring the advocacy and the resources that the community in South Oxnard deserves. I have a variety of support from many local organizations, including Port Commissioner Marianne Rooney, as well as Assembly Member Steve Bennett, the Central Coast Labor Council, Oxnard Firefighters, Oxnard Police Officers Association, the United Farm Workers, electricians, iron workers, and so many more. I look forward to genuinely representing our community and counting on your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you. That concludes our forum for City Council District 6. Thank you to all the candidates for participating in this forum. It takes an enormous amount of time and energy to run for office, not just for yourself, but also for your family, friends, and supporters. We thank you for taking part in maintaining our democracy. I would also like to thank the INCO Executive Board for approving these candidate forums, Mr. Adam Smith with the City of Oxnard for Forum Logistics, Ms. Martha Guillen for timekeeping tonight, the INCO for hosting, and the City of Oxnard for the use of their council chambers. We thank all the candidates for your time to speak to the voters, and good luck to you both. At this time, we will transition back to INCO Chair Diana Velzi before starting the next candidates forum for the position of mayor. Thank you, and Chair Velzi.
Thank you, candidates, for your participation tonight. We will take a short break, up to about 15 minutes, to ready the next panel of candidates.
Diego.
Good evening, and thank you for attending this night's event. I would like to welcome the next panel of candidates, mayoral candidates. Ronald, will you please start your opening statement?
Thank you, Chair Diana Velzi. Good evening, Oxnard residents and those watching at home. I am Ronald Arwejo, a member of the Inter-Neighborhood Council Organization and Chair of the East Village Neighborhood. I am your moderator for the position of mayor. We are proud to present the candidates for mayor, and we have 3 of 5 of them present with us tonight. The INCO of the City of Oxnard consists of the chairpersons and executive boards of Oxnard's 44 active neighborhood councils, all being volunteers, giving residents the opportunity to participate in governmental decision-making processes and serving as an advocacy group for each of the neighborhood councils. This forum is being hosted by the INCO. As an organization, it cannot and does not publicly support any candidate for political office. This is an opportunity for voters to hear directly from the candidates to get the information they need to make an informed choice when voting. We are glad that all are here to hear from our candidates, and we do hope that the voters get the information that they need. The rules of this forum have been previously communicated to the candidates as follows. Candidates will be given 90 seconds to present their opening and closing statements. Questions will be posed to all the candidates, and each candidate will be given 60 seconds to answer. Candidates may have 1 page of notes to refer to and will additionally have paper to write notes on. The moderator requests that candidates answer the questions posed directly to them so that the voters understand where you all stand on the issues of importance to the public. We will now begin with the opening statements from all candidates. The seating order was randomly drawn prior to this event. Please take note of the timer before you. The first candidate will be Mayor Pro Tem Brian A. McDonald, who will start with our opening statement, followed by Mr. Lewis A. MacArthur, and then by Mr. Rafael M. Hernandez. You can begin, Mayor Pro Tem Brian A. McDonald.
Thank you, and thank you to the INCO for the opportunity to be here and talk with you and those present here. For those of you that don't know me, I spent 30 years total time with the Oxnard Police Department, retired in June of 2006, and after about 18 months, I decided to run for public office. So I ran for city council in 2008 and was elected, and I'm finishing my 4th term now as a council member. My background in education is I have a bachelor's degree from Cal State Long Beach in criminal justice, a master's degree in public administration from Cal State Northridge, and a Juris Doctorate degree from Ventura College of Law. I believe in strong business community and feel that when we have a strong business community, we have a strong local community. It all interrelates. I'm proud to be here, proud to participate in this forum, and look forward to responding to your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Brian A. McDonald. Our next is Mr. Lewis A. MacArthur, followed by Mr. Rafael M. Hernandez. Mr. MacArthur, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you for turning on the mic. Good evening, everybody. First of all, I'm really excited, really happy to be here. I'm a person that is sincere, genuine, and I speak from the heart. I'm running for the office of mayor because I want to utilize my talents and skills to make a difference in my community. I'm an Oxnard Police Commander presently. I've been with the Oxnard Police Department now for 35 years, and I'm dedicated to public service. My career has been defined by a relentless dedication to ensuring the safety and well-being of all members of our community. I have a master's degree in public administration from USC, and also a master's certificate in city and county management, also from USC. I went back to school to hone my skills to be better prepared for the role of mayor in leading this city. I have honed my management, transparency, and collaboration skills. I'm ready to leverage this knowledge to tackle our city's most pressing challenges, such as homelessness and housing, and capitalize on growth and improvement opportunities. I'm focused on enhancing public safety, focusing on innovative policing strategies and community partnerships, community engagement. I'm committed to fostering an inclusive city where all voices are heard, economic development. I will advocate for initiatives.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. Your time is up. We'll now move on to Mr. Rafael M. Hernandez. You have 90 seconds.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here present. Thank you for putting all these things together, City of Oxnard, all officials that are present right here. Thank you for my colleagues to join me on this venture, and I wish you the best luck. My name is Rafael Hernandez, as you know. I'm an accountant. I manage a business, a large business, commercial business for 30 years, financial shell. I never have lost any employee during my 30 years of work. I never have to fire anyone. I dedicate myself to every single individual and work out face-to-face and complete my job nicely. I can say that I know how to check and balance, that I will keep an eye on all your pennies, people of Oxnard, citizens of Oxnard. I will make sure your tax money go spent wisely, equally on the communities, south and north, east and west. Reason I'm running for city mayor, because I have seen some discrepancies in our city government since the time I've been here. I remember, if you guys remember, and this is for the young generation, the young people in our city. If you guys remember when Mr. Tom Holden was mayor of the city with Mr. Herrera, Ortega, and some others, Sotelo, I believe, and other individuals, we get right out from the district attorney's office.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Your time is up. We'll now go into the question section of the forum, group by topic. Our first topic will be on Oxnard governance. The first question will be posed to Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, then Mr. MacArthur, and finally Mr. Hernandez. If elected as mayor, you will lead and represent the city in a variety of ways. What is your experience in leading a meeting according to the open meeting law, otherwise known as the Brown Act? How have you been able to effectively represent your organization, city or otherwise, to external entities? Generally, what is your leadership style or process? Mayor Pro Tem, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you very much. Being on council is more than just meeting once a week and representing the community. Many of us sit on outside agencies and boards. I sit on Gold Coast Transit District, Ventura County Transportation Commission, LOSAN, which is the regional rail authority for the Pacific Surfliner Amtrak service. I sit on the Economic Development Collaborative of Ventura County. There's a whole plethora of things that we do outside of this. And all of my work on those other agencies is done with the focus of what can I do on those boards to help benefit my community. Being in politics is what I like to call a team sport. You have to have the ability to reach across the aisle, make relationships with other people and other electeds, and really do that for the benefit of this community. I'm proud to be supported by all 5 members of the Board of Supervisors, which shows my ability to be able to reach out and build relationships with other people that will benefit my community.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Our next is Mr. MacArthur. You have 60 seconds.
Sure. As an executive member of the Oxnard Police Department, early on in my career, I discovered that one of the major qualities that I have is collaboration. The significance of the Brown Act passed back in 1953 was to allow meetings held by city government, including board meetings and others that directly affect the community. What it forces government to do is to make sure that that it's a participative process when you involve any decision taken that directly affects a community. My strong trait is that of a collaborator, a consensus builder, and somebody that's inclusive and values partnerships with people. So I subscribe to that ruling that happened, and as a mayor, I promise to make sure that I abide by that and allow for participation of people to come in and watch us like you're doing now, or watch us at home, and make sure that we have the infrastructure set up to allow people at home to watch as well.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. Finally, Mr. Hernandez, you have 1 minute.
Yes, talking about public relations with the public right here and the residents of Oxnard, I can highly say I'm so proud that 40 or more, maybe 45% of the people in Oxnard recognize me, and they know who Rafael Hernandez is. I'm a good citizen. I'm outstanding. You guys can scan my name, my driver license, everything else, and you will find who is this citizen that wants to serve the community, only with the only object that don't get manipulation no more in this system that we have right now. I wanted to work for the best for you, for Oxnard, and the children of Oxnard. I want to stop this manipulation in the business. And these colleges that I have in my right side, they've been police officers for 30 years. I bet you they go to the streets, they're not gonna talk to them. If they go to the south area, where the area is more hit by our police department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. We'll move on to our next question, first to be answered by Mr. MacArthur, then Mr. Hernandez, and finally by Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. The minimum services that a city provides can usually be described as the safety and welfare of its residents by its police and fire departments. By dollar amount, these departments receive the greatest increases at a combined $8.7 million, 28% of the increase in the fiscal year 24 to 25 budget as compared to the previous fiscal year. What is your experience with the administration of public safety? Are the increasing costs to the budget reasonable? Why or why not? Mr. MacArthur.
Sure. As an active police commander, and now with 35 years of experience in the police department, I know well the monies that are allocated for public safety. Having that relevant experience, I have my finger on the pulse of this city and what's happening. I've had a front row seat to see our social ills plaguing our city. I also realize in the makeup of our city, we're an immigrant community here, that many of us come from parts of the world where police are incredibly oppressive. You can't have a sustainable city without having a safe city that is protected, where there's legitimacy in its policing, where there's transparency in the police department, because ultimately we can't do our job without the trust of the public. We can't have people come in here and invest in opening up businesses and investing in being homeowners if we cannot protect them and provide a safe place for them to be here in our city.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. Next is going to be Mr. Hernandez, followed by Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Mr. Hernandez.
Yes, if elected to the position of city mayor, I will open the Oxnard doors to small and large businesses, investors, so we can create more jobs for our community. Also want to work very closely with all the officials, like Mr. Benitez, Jason Benitez. He's a great man. Finally, we find somebody who understands the community. I just met with him, and if I elected, I will work very closely with them and with the sheriff department, also with the DA, to accomplish this goal. And safety matters for our city are greatly to me because I see all this homeless population growing up every single day, and we need to protect our people, our citizens, our children, our families. I will do my best to have all these things in place, and I'm not going to fail you, Oxnard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Last on this question, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Thank you. The last year that I worked for the police department, I was the assistant chief over the Administrative Services Bureau, and we handled the budget for the police department, so I'm vastly familiar with that aspect. And being on council, I'm vastly familiar with all the budgets. People sometimes have sticker shock when they see how much public safety costs. But you have to remember that public safety are the group that on Friday night after about 6 o'clock until Monday morning about 8 a.m., they're usually the only folks that are around the city working. Other people are around, but they aren't in the office doing anything else. If you have an emergency, your public safety group is there and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They're here on holidays, they're here on all days. So does it cost a lot? Yeah. If you were to run a finance bureau the same way, it would be terribly expensive, but we don't need finance people all 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, you know, we're prepared.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you. Our next question will first go to Mr. Hernandez, then Mr. MacArthur, and finally Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Resolutions that express the local will of the people do not necessarily have a direct or even an indirect effect on the workings of the city. Should the city be spending more or less time deliberating resolutions that could send a message to the appropriate level of government? Mr. Hernandez.
Resolutions are needed, not too many rules. Regulations are too many already in the city and the county. Speaking of our city, I have so many complaints from small business people who are sending his application or their application to the city, and also a couple of large investors that have been turned down from the city just for lack of whatever personnel or professionals that are handling these permits. If elected, I will follow up with them and make sure those permits get authorized and signed and stamped in less than 3 or 4 months, the maximum. We need those businesses here. I don't know why they're running out of our city. And somebody say that we don't have the Strawberry Festival here.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Your time is up. Our next is Mr. MacArthur, followed by Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Mr. MacArthur, you have 1 minute.
Sure. You know, when we talk about doing resolutions to enhance whatever service delivery that we are trying to target, one of the things we got to take action on a lot of these things. I know I heard Rafael mention about streamlining processes for permits. That's something that's been plaguing us for a considerable amount of time. But, you know, pushing paper around and figuring out, taking input from people but not acting on it is a delay in processes. So we have to make sure that if we're going to make a resolution, if we're going to provide some level of indication that this is what we're going to do, we take that recommendation from some committee. We empower them to make those recommendations, but we also, it's the responsibility of government to act on those recommendations and do something about it.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. And finally, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Thank you. Resolutions are really labor intensive in terms of legal services, secretarial services, clerical services, and everything else. And they really don't do a whole heck of a lot other than put our statements on paper. And I'll use the example of when the County of Ventura wanted to build very high density housing in the Harbor District because they owned all the property down there and thought that they could do that. We didn't take the time to pass a resolution saying we didn't like it. We reached out to our peers on the Board of Supervisors, the CEO of the County of Ventura, and expressed our concern, saying that you're going to do development in our city without our input and detrimentally affect our community with traffic and high density population. We don't agree with this. So I think that's the better way to do it. If you have disagreements with other agencies, talk to them face to face. Get the facts sorted out and come to some better conclusion. I don't think a resolution would have made any difference.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We'll move on to our next topic on the economy and finances of the city. Our first question will be posed to Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, then Mr. Hernandez, and last by Mr. MacArthur. From 2023 to 27, water rates for single-family, residential, multifamily, and commercial water use in Tier 1 will go up 27%. Various other fixed charges will also be increasing depending on the type of location service, connection size, etc. Was an increase of 5 to 10% year over year the best financial action for the city to take when high inflation was additionally taking the disposable income of residents? Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Thank you. It's never easy raising rates. It's never pleasant. I'm never happy about it because I pay the same rates that everyone else does. But we have to remember that not all of our water comes from us directly. A lot of it comes from outside agencies, Calles, who gets their water through Metropolitan. And there's a cost to doing that. And sadly, especially when there's a shortage of water, it gets even more expensive. And Oxnard had to ask people to ration their water usage just so we could make sure there was enough there. If we could be able to provide the service without having to raise the rates, that would be wonderful. But we have to do something to cover our costs. And if we don't, and there's a deficit to that budget item, which legally can't happen, we have to find the money elsewhere, and that takes away from other services. So while it's never pleasant, We don't do this to make money or profit. We do this to provide service to the community, and that's what the rates are based upon.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Next, Mr. Hernandez, followed by Mr. MacArthur. Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. Water is an essential liquid to be alive besides air, if I'm correct. Only thing I don't agree, and you shouldn't agree, citizens of Oxnard, with all my respect, I don't agree on raising the water between these individuals that handle business at closed doors without letting you know that it's going to be a raise on the water. I think the public has the right to know when the officials are planning to raise a penny and your water use. So that was an issue, and there was a lawsuit. I don't know if it's still pending or it's fixed because of that item. They raised out the water without telling you. It shouldn't happen no more.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Last, Mr. MacArthur.
Sure. I think it was a modest approach to take, incrementally increasing our water usage, our water prices. If you look at historically what utility costs here in our city, we were remarkably lower than anybody else here in the county. So I thought it was a very good approach that we took here in this city to incrementally uptick on that tax base. But, that should come with a campaign for sustainable water usage as well. One of the things that we can do as a city is provide advances in technology to make sure that homes, particularly poor community members, don't utilize as much water. This way it lowers their water tier. And so we should promote the sustainability approaches and educate our community as to what is out there so that they can save on water.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. We'll move on to our next question. First to Mr. MacArthur, then Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, and finally, Mr. Hernandez. What will and can you do specifically to make it easier for small, locally owned businesses to find affordable retail and commercial spaces, particularly for minority-owned businesses? Will you support policies like rent control or grants to help these businesses thrive? Mr. MacArthur.
Sure. One of the things that I think is not being recognized here as a city is when you look at, the UCLA report that came out yesterday is a good indication of that. When you look at what our community members are earning here, we have to ask the question whether or not we're preparing them to be able to do startup companies, to be able to get some of these higher paying jobs. When you talk about the education accomplishment of some of our members of our community, I think there are other civic organizations, the colleges. I think, we just can't put the ownership on city government. We have to work in partnership with the schools, with our colleges, the surrounding colleges around here to make sure that they are preparing our students, recognizing the makeup of our city here, to make sure that these students are getting the right education to be able to occupy some of these jobs that are high-paying jobs. And then from there, with that preparation, then government can come in. We can come in and certainly subsidize some assistance for first-time business owners. For example, we can provide that assistance so that they can get that, it propels them up to get that first start at business.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. Next, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, followed by Mr. Hernandez. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. One of the most challenging things for businesses that want to come to Oxnard that I've found out about or seen in action is our permitting process. And everyone is understandably bothered by our permitting process, but a lot of that process is put upon us by the state. The state issues mandates. They issue mandates about recycling, waste recovery, and all that. And it can be very challenging. Those are things that we have to pass through. But I've worked with Fidelity Record Pressing, which is a vinyl record company that is now working here in Oxnard to get them through the permitting process. I worked with Larrivee Custom Guitars to get them through the process. I'm fortunate that I understand the process and the mechanics fairly well, and I'm able to offer them advice to get them through the process successfully in a fairly good time frame. I think that's the key to getting more businesses to come here, is knowing they don't have to go it alone. If they want to ask my help, I do it. That's part of being an elected.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We'll end with Mr. Hernandez.
I can guarantee that none of these officials present right here in this courtroom or this podium, have visited and talked face-to-face to a small businesses owner, not only till this election, trying to get the vote for them. I know a large number, if not 90% of all the small businesses here in the city, and I know personally who are the owners. I'm in contact with them, and thank you. I salute you greatly. You are the bone of this economy. We don't want you to close your doors, please, business owners. Everybody in this city, don't close your doors, please. If I get elected, I will find a solution to your problem. I'll make sure you stay in business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. We'll move on to our last question on this topic. First to Ms. Hernandez, then Mr. MacArthur, then Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Based on the fiscal year 24 to 25 budget that was adopted this past summer, the top three largest departmental expense changes from the previous fiscal year by percentage were the city manager's office, the cultural and community services, and finally the fire department. The three departmental decreases were community development, finance department, and human resources. Were these increases and decreases the most appropriate going into the current fiscal year? What could have been different going into this fiscal year? Mr. Hernandez.
Yes, difference for this fiscal year. This is the first time the city of Oxnard has a surplus of $35 or $37 million, which is a small number to me. I would like to review those numbers and look for a team to look on those accounts, sit down with city manager and their accounting, since they have a lawsuit in court with the treasurer, Mr. Molina. And I don't know, this is another object that it shouldn't be happening between here and our city government. Employee suing his own boss, employee suing their own city. And who's paying for these lawsuits? You, me, the people who pay taxes on this city. So we need to prevent those things from happening again.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Next is Mr. MacArthur, followed by Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Mr. MacArthur.
Hey, Ron, can you repeat the question? That's a really compounded question.
Increases on the city manager, cultural and community services, and fire department. Decreases on community development, finance department, and human resources. Were these increases and decreases appropriate? What would you change?
You know, the thing that we need to prioritize as a city will always be public safety, because without public safety, we can't have people come in here and invest in our city. So that should always be the priority. But there also should be a significant focus on youth and education as well. These young people are the future of the city, and they're the future workforce of the city as well. So there should be a significant attention paid to make sure that they have the right resources available, to make sure that they are vibrant, and to make sure they have the opportunities that they need to have to be productive.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. Last on this question, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
I think when you put it in perspective that the increases are appropriate, you have to remember that for the longest time, this city struggled financially. We struggled for a variety of reasons, and a lot of departments gave up positions. The police department back in around 2007, 2008, gave up 35 positions across their agency. Building and safety gave up positions. City manager's department gave up positions, all because of the finances situation that we were facing, like many other cities were. And this year, yes, we do have a budget surplus. The first time I can remember in almost 40 years with this city that we have this surplus. Thanks to Amazon, thanks to being thrifty and frugal and watching what we're doing, we're finally able to start seeing some of these positions come back. And if you think it hasn't affected us, talk to somebody trying to get through the building safety plan or permitting. It takes forever because we don't have the staff. We have to outsource it. So yes, the positions are appropriate.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. We'll now move on to our next topic on homelessness and affordable housing. First to Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, followed by Mr. MacArthur, and then Mr. Hernandez. The city requires affordable housing to be part of any new residential development containing 10 or more dwelling units, or for developers to pay an in lieu fee instead of producing the affordable units. What do you believe is the appropriate minimum percentage that a project must be available for lower income households? Should an in lieu fee be available for developers instead of producing affordable units? Mayor Pro Tem, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. We are under state mandate to create a certain amount of housing for both low and moderate income people, also referred to as affordable housing. Comes through a process called a regional housing needs assessment, and it's done by a formula put out by the state of California. And Oxnard is doing a better job than most other communities in trying to meet those needs, but we're still behind. We need the housing for our folks that can't afford mainstream housing, but they deserve to have a good place to live. And you're seeing a lot of projects come online, especially in the downtown core around 6th and Mita. There's 2 projects that have come online that offer a mixture of market rate and affordable housing. I think it's the appropriate thing to do. It's required by state law, and we're doing the best that we can. And I think we're setting a standard for everyone else in our county to show that it can be done and be done efficiently.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. We'll go with Mr. MacArthur and then Mr. Hernandez. Mr. MacArthur, you have 60 seconds.
Sure. I support the development of residential properties, particularly affordable housing in areas that are located in desirable neighborhoods. And the reason for that is that gives homeowners or folks that are living in those affordable housing units the opportunity to go to good schools, have great open spaces, good jobs, or good job prospects. You see how positive the return is when you see Section 8 families living in homes where those landlords are renting to Section 8 in really desirable neighborhoods. It puts them among other influential families. It puts them in better schools with better job prospects, and it just promotes a better outcome. So I am a proponent of affordable housing in great neighborhoods.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. We'll now move on to Mr. Hernandez. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. As a mayor, I will get a rule implemented on this city for any major builder that wants to build 100 homes or more or apartments. I will ask them to build 20% of their units for the low and middle class in this city. That is much needed. Right now we have an issue, families living like 7, 8 to 10 individuals in one house, which is pretty badly, but unfortunately that's only all they can do. They work 2 jobs and they barely bring 1 or 2 meals to their table with their kids. This needs like an emergency to be fixed. And for the homeless, I will bring a model from Austin, Texas, a community named Community Village. Every of you guys can go online and find Community Village. I will implement that model in Ventura County, and why not say in the state of California for the homeless people.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our next question. To go first to Mr. MacArthur, then Mr. Hernandez, and then Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. The state, county, and cities have enacted a variety of laws and policies to reduce the incidence of homelessness. What have been the best and worst actions that Oxnard has taken in combating homelessness? What, if any, new actions will you take if you are elected as mayor? Mr. MacArthur.
Sure. I came at a time in policing where we didn't have the homeless situation that we have now. You look at some of the state measures that contributed to homelessness, such as Prop 47, Prop 57, AB 109, and in certain stances, when we could or could not remove folks that were camping on the street unless we had beds appropriate for them. We saw the recent Supreme Court decision that now allows us to be able to take some action. But nonetheless, I think that the way we have to look at it is to make sure that we take a collaborative approach with our jurisdictional partners to make sure that there are comprehensive wraparound services for people that are experiencing mental illness as well as drug addiction, which are what's prevalent here in our city. These are somebody's children, these are somebody's father, and so we have to be sensitive in our approach with them because mass incarceration, as we've seen, it has not worked.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. Our next is Mr. Hernandez, followed by Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. We have shelters for animals, dogs, pigs, horses, cats, everything else, but we don't have shelter for human beings, your brothers and God, not your brothers in blood, your brothers and sisters in God. They deserve a better thing from us as a human beings, as a government. We all need to get involved. Citizens, regular citizens, government, local, county, state, and federal. We must act now, or we're going to end up in a big crisis global-wise. And USA, we need to get together and do something essential. I propose again to bring them out from Austin, Texas, and start building tiny homes for these individuals and give them a second chance with rehabilitation, with food, with things that they can do and come back to society. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. And last, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Thank you. When you leave tonight, take a look at 2nd and B. You'll see a very tall building, about 5 stories, that is on property that was owned by the city. We worked to deal with Mercy Housing to give them the property. They are building a shelter facility there that will be an inclusional program where people that are suffering from homelessness for whatever reason can go there, get services, medical, psychological, addiction treatment, and so on, and also live on the property through what we call inclusionary housing, where they can reinstitute themselves back into society or get back into mainstream society. There's a project down in 6th and Meta that's also run by another provider that does the same type of thing that we're gonna do. For a long time, we provided shelter space for the homeless people during the winter, but we didn't do anything with them. We didn't structure any programs. We didn't have any services. We were just warehousing people. Now we've taken it to the next step.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. We'll move on to our last question on this topic. First to Mr. Hernandez, followed by Mr. MacArthur, and then by Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. SOAR stands for Save Open Space and Agricultural Resources, which establish CURB, city-urban restriction boundary lines around most cities, which generally restricted the growth of urban development within the CURB lines that were first established in 1995 and were amended to remain in effect until the year 2050. Has SOAR contributed to rising housing costs in Oxnard and throughout Ventura County? What is your opinion of how SOAR and CURB have been for the city's residents? Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. First of all, I will implement a rule that those lands that are used for agriculture right now remain the same. No permits for those agriculture areas to build anything. We need the campesinos in this area, in our town. Our town is famous because of that. We have the largest campesinos, workers and hard workers. My pledge to them, I salute everybody with respect. Those people, they gonna be out and where they have to go. So creating zoning for buildings or permits, commercial or whatever, is going to be reduced. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Our next to Mr. MacArthur, and then Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Mr. MacArthur.
Sure, there's no doubt that SOAR and CURB have affected growth in Ventura County that has had a potential adverse effect on housing prices here in the city, but we can't ignore the fact that Ventura County, particularly here in Oxnard, this is a beautiful place to live. We have a strong economy, and this is why people are here. We want to live here and we want to work here. But nonetheless, we can get creative in our decisions as to where we're going to put housing. And this is in collaboration with those that are already here. We have to have responsible growth in our city that can support the base that is here in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. And last, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Thank you. In terms of has soaring curb affected property values here, I would say absolutely. It put a limit on the amount of developable space that we have within our city limits. And so what we're having to do is rethink what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And a lot of times it's not building out, it's building up. That tends to be a little more expensive. Anytime you limit anything in terms of a commodity, it has the unnatural effect of raising those prices to get that property. Property values have gone up incredibly high. But we have to provide housing for our community and housing opportunities for our community. The same way we talk about building the low and moderate income complexes, we need the land to build them on. And if you can't build them spread out, you have to build them going upward. That's why you're seeing the building across the street going 5 stories high, because there's just not much developable space left in the city. It's a double-edged sword trying to do the best for your community and obey the law.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. We'll now move on to our next topic on the City Council's 5-year priorities from 2023 to 27. First posed to Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, and then Mr. Hernandez, and last, Mr. MacArthur. Under the category of economic development, the number 3 priority of the City Council is to, quote, revitalize the Wainimi, Saviors, Pleasant Valley, Channel Islands corridor, end quote. What has been done, or what will you do specifically to increase economic growth and activity in this particular area? Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
A lot of people aren't very fond of the Port of Wainimi because of truck traffic and everything else that comes out of there, but they're a huge economic factor within our community. And we've looked at trying to do things to minimize their impact on the surrounding community, especially along Wainimi Road. And you'll see, if you go out to 5th and Rice, you'll see that they're moving just mountains of dirt around that area, and that's for part of the 5th Street flyover to make Rice straight over the tracks without any signal and increase traffic flow. So what we're trying to do is increase and encourage truck traffic to stay out of Oxnard Central, to go around the outskirts, get to the freeway and go where they need to go with as little intrusion as possible. And I think that's attractive for businesses when they come in to provide services and provide things that make that area attractive. I've worked with the property owner.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. That's your time. We'll move on to Mr. Hernandez, last to Mr. MacArthur. Mr. Hernandez, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Yeah, I will improve all these areas and beautify so people can get attracted not only locally but from other areas like LA, San Francisco. Visitors can come, tourist people can come and enjoy our city. I will make sure this city becomes the most beautiful city and safest city in the state of California. With all the services, especially in the south, that is much needed. Somebody were talking about sewer or whatever, the rain or flooding. Most of those areas that they don't even have a sewer. Those homes were built in the 30s, 40s, and they're in very bad shape. So the city is responsible to do something for these people in the south. We must act, or we're going to have a disaster if we end up like they do in Florida right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. We'll move last to Mr. MacArthur.
Well, I will always advocate for initiatives that stimulate economic growth. I grew up in the South End. I grew up on Hamilton Avenue. I attended Fred Williams and Blackstock and graduated from Channel Islands High School. And that side of town did not look like that when I was growing up. But now we're seeing polar opposites between the South End and the North End. I'm committed to investing in more and more open space, enhancing our roadways, making sure that we got good architectural design for new development there, to make sure that you have a pretty place to stimulate growth, to make sure that people want to live in that part of town, because the way it is now, it's a perpetual problem where now you've got like liquor stores and markets that historically charge more because of the convenience of them being there. And that's perpetuating to the problem of poor people living in those conditions.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. We'll now move on to our next question. First to Mr. Hernandez, then Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, and then Mr. MacArthur last. Under the category of quality of life, the number 4 priority is to, quote, build an aquatic center in South Oxnard, end quote. Do you support the aquatic center? If so, why? If not, what other project or projects could be funded instead? Mr. Hernandez.
Yes, I support it. I'm a favor. Again, that needs to be renovated and have it in use. Get not only that, but all the buildings in Oxnard that are abandoned and nobody really take care of them, they are in much needed or renovation. And put those to the public so we can lease it, rent it, and create some income. Those buildings are creating an expense to our taxpayers, people right here in Oxnard, paying taxes for those empty monuments or buildings doesn't do any good to our citizens. We need to create some income and revenue. So that will be my proposal. I'm positive on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Next will be Mayor Pro Tem McDonald and then Mr. MacArthur. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, and I supported the proposal for the aquatic center in College Park. I think it's needed. We need to have that particular type of recreation ability in our city, and I think that's the appropriate place to do it. The downside to a lot of this stuff is that, like most cities, we bond for money for projects. When we want to do campus park, sports park, or the aquatic center, we have to go out for a public bond. Because of litigation by one particular resident who has sued us probably 10 times or more, the bond market has told us we won't issue any bonds to the city of Oxnard for anything until all this litigation is cleared up. Well, we're stuck between a rock and a hard spot. We have Campus Park, College Park, and the Aquatic Center that we can't build because we can't get funding for it because we can't get bond money. And it would be like you going out to buy a house and saying, oh, I'll just save my money up until I pay cash for it. That doesn't happen. You get a loan, you get the house, and that's the way it works, and we're stuck until we resolve that.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Last is Mr. MacArthur. You have 60 seconds.
You know, our rating and standard reports has gone up here in the city of Oxnard to make it possible to invest in some of these recreational activities. Swimming pools are very, very expensive. If you consult with other cities that have invested in just that, there's a lot of money and a lot of technology and a lot of repairs that go into it. I would do a poll and a survey with the residents of that sector of our community to see if this is something that they would favor comparably to a sports park. This is a big sports city. Soccer is prevalent here in our city. We should discuss the opportunity to develop a sports park that brings in tourism. There's less cost and maintenance than a pool and more readily used than a pool. You can host tournaments, have teams come out and invest in our local economy, our local businesses. But I would take that conversation directly to the residents of South Oxnard.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. We'll now move on to our next topic, some more general questions. First to Mr. MacArthur, then Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, and last to Mr. Hernandez for the first question. You all have a number of priorities if you are elected as mayor. What is your top priority and why? What will you do to make positive change in this area? Mr. MacArthur.
Well, coming from policing, clearly, top priority for me is enhancing public service. I staunchly believe that without having a safe and protected city, then recreational activities, businesses will suffer as a result. But with that, we need to certainly invest in our education and youth programs. Supporting youth and investing in their educational opportunities are crucial for our city's future. I will work on expanding programs that support student success and provide positive activities for young people.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. Next, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, followed by Ms. Hernandez. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. My top priority is maintaining the fiscal ability that we currently have. We're in the best fiscal position we've been in I don't know how many years. We finally are doing Gonzales Road the right way. We repaved it, rebuilt the whole thing, and we've striped it. We're fixing alleys in the central part of Oxnard. We're doing them in concrete instead of asphalt. They're going to last forever. We're doing a lot of good things in this city, and I want to see that continue into the future. And that's going to take planning and fiscal stewardship over this community. But we're in the best position we've been in a long time, and my primary focus is to make sure that as we move forward, we continue on that plane and continue making the right decisions that we've made so far to get us to where we're at and get us to better places. There's a lot of opportunity out there for us.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And last on this question, Mr. Hernandez.
Yeah, my top priority will be to fix the issue of the homeless. Find a solution to them first, and then go to safety on our city. And from there, fix all the parks, streets and alleys that are in very bad shape. I repeat again, in the south, Ross Park, Colonia, El Rio, Nyland Acres, and so on. I will concentrate on those areas because they are the ones that much needed restoration on the streets and the alleys. The parks to be used for our children and teenagers, and so the families can enjoy too, and they can play sports of every kind that they need or they prefer, soccer, baseball, basketball, etc. So that will be some of my priorities if I elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Our next question will be slightly different to each of the candidates, but it's the same topic. The first question will go to Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, and the second and third question will be the same to Mr. MacArthur and Ms. Hernandez. The first question to Mayor Pro Tem McDonald: why did you decide to run for mayor instead of for re-election as councilman for District 4? Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Thank you. When Mayor Zaragoza announced that he wasn't going to seek office again, I thought that I would be interested in helping that because we have an excellent council. We're doing very well. We're doing the best we've been doing in a long time. I want to see that trend continue. And behind Mayor Zaragoza, I probably have the next highest level of institutional knowledge of the city to make sure we move forward. I have the ability to create relationships with other agencies, communities, and groups to move us forward. We are really on a good path right now, and I absolutely want to see us continue to go down that road. I had done 4 terms in District 4. I was eligible for another term. I wasn't sure if I was going to run again for District 4 or not, but when the opportunity came up to help protect this city by becoming mayor and move us farther forward, I took the opportunity to take that chance.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And now the same question to both Mr. MacArthur and Ms. Hernandez. First to Mr. MacArthur, why did you decide to run for mayor instead of for city council first? Mr. MacArthur.
Sure. There's not an open city council seat where I currently live, and there's not going to be one for at least 2 years. I've been a public servant, not only working at the police department, but I'm a doer. If you Google me or look me up, you'll see that for the last 27 years, from doing Spanish television shows to taking the initiative to start radio shows directly communicating issues that are affecting our community, I did all that. From starting soccer programs, involving families, collaborating with families, I did all that. My strong suit is that of a collaborator and a good listener and an avid reader. I'm motivated seeing that these other council seats are open, and you're seeing a lot of young people coming in, just like we saw with Arthur and Michaela here, a lot of energy, and that's what I have, a lot of energy and a lot of passion, and I would love to work with these younger people like myself that can propel this city forward.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. And last to Ms. Hernandez, I'll repeat the question. Why did you decide to run for mayor instead of for city council? You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I decided to run for mayor because I want to be the leader of this city. And I want to lead this government and straight out things that are not so good. And all you know, You can see records of this city in court, and those are public records. You can search and see how our administrations have been handling business in our city and between them. That's the main motor, the motivation, and the people of Oxnard. I wanted to be your advocate. I wanted to look for your benefit, not for me. Some of these people, not all of them, but some of them, they look only for themselves. They raise their salary whenever they want, at closed doors, and even when they're gonna retire, they raise it even more to have a pleasant life with your tax money. Please, Oxnard and the York, get involved in your community. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Our next topic, I term continuing problems not yet resolved. Our first question will be to Mr. MacArthur, and then to Ms. Hernandez, and last to Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. In the Ventura County Star article titled, "Oxnard Can't Take on Ambulance Service Under Governor's Veto," published just 2 weeks ago, quote, "Oxnard won't be allowed to take over the community's ambulance services from the County of Ventura under Gavin Newsom's veto of a bill that city officials argued they could have provided better ambulance service, particularly in Oxnard's lowest income neighborhoods, than the community gets through the system administered by the county," end quote. Was the governor incorrect in his veto and in not allowing municipal control of its ambulance services? Is the county ignoring the needs of its lowest income population? In general, when is it better for Oxnard to join a regional service or to go it alone? Mr. MacArthur.
Look, one of the things that is obvious is those that are living in the southeast part of our city endure lower response time for emergency services. When you see where hospitals, urgent cares, trauma centers are located, they're all here in the northern part of our city. St. John's Hospital, then the Trauma Center at VCMC, Community Memorial. So to provide emergency services to those that may need it most in the southern part of our city, it does require immediate response. And so we would need to explore that further to make sure that, again, through input of our community members that live in that part of the city with our jurisdictional partners in our county, to explore that and gain some momentum and gain some support, so to make sure that those that live in the farthest part of our city that most need the care, our elderly, our veteran, our poorest community, get the services that they need in a timely manner.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. Next will be Mr. Hernandez, followed by Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. I will open the door for a new business on that item, emergency ambulance, to anyone from the state of California to come, willing to come and open their business right here in our city, so we don't have to depend with Ventura County. We have to feed self-sufficiency in our city, and we have to think and remind everyone right here in this courtroom, on this room, city room, sorry, that those communities on the south deserve the service that the north is getting. Everything will be equal. The services will be for the poor, for the median, and for the high. There will be no difference on responses. 5 minutes for the north, 5 minutes for the south. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. And last is Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Thank you. I disagree with the governor not signing that bill. And what started this whole process was Oxnard has been trying to work with the oversight board that's staffed by the county for the most part about medical services for my community, our community here in Oxnard. We are 1/4 of the county's population, and we do not have trauma service in this city. You either have to go to Ventura or to Thousand Oaks. And I'll give you an example that just was absolutely terrible in my mind. There was an extremely severe accident in front of St. John's at Gonzales and Rose with a mother and her daughter, and both of them required trauma care. Mother was transported to Los Robles, daughter was transported to VCMC. They were separated, and sadly the daughter died. They were right in front of an excellent hospital that had the ability to offer trauma services. That may not have happened, I don't know. And the other sad part is the mother couldn't spend the last time with her daughter. 'Cause they were separated.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. That's your time. We'll now move on to our second question. First to Mr. Hernandez, then Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, and last to Mr. MacArthur. There have been complaints about the noise from airplanes in and around the Oxnard Airport for some time, arguably increasing more in the past couple of decades with more development getting built nearby. Officially, starting in October 2022, the Ventura County Department of Airports is preparing a Part 150 noise compatibility study for the airport, a cooperative effort between the Ventura County Department of Airports and the Federal Aviation Administration. What else can and should the city do in regard to complaints regarding noise related to the airport? Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. Well, first of all, people who live in this area and the ones came lastly to the city and purchased properties, they knew what they're going to get, right? The airport has been here for so long, we cannot get rid of it. We can implement rules or maybe ask the aviation, the federal aviation to help us to minimize those complaints, but definitely it's not the city's responsibility to take the noise or to minimize the noise. Those people who purchased those properties, they knew, just like when you move to a Mexican home, you know we like the banda, right? If you know it's a Mexican there, don't get close to that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Next, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, followed by Mr. MacArthur. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I guess probably if anyone's acute to noise problems, it would be me. I live right in the flight path going into Oxnard Airport on regular days. On windy days, it's also the exit path. It takes off right over my house. And I talk to Keith Freitas on a pretty regular basis. Now, the airport's kind of a complex issue in that the county owns the airport. They manage everything on the ground. And then once planes are up in the air, it goes under the control of the tower, which is FAA, which is a federal agency. Oxnard tries to have working relationships with both of them. And I know that Keith, after a while of talking to him about noise, he did approach a lot of the flight schools, and a lot of the circular patterns of airplanes were from the flight schools. And they're trying to provide a business, and he got voluntary participation from them to change their routes as they leave the airport. Instead of turning southbound over the city, they turn northbound over the agricultural area.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And last, Mr. MacArthur.
I live near the train, and I hear the train every morning and at night. Those are just things that come where you decide to purchase a home. But nonetheless, I also realize that increasing flights into our airport is good for our city. It's good for our economy. It contributes to more jobs and more economy here in our city. But one of the things that we can do as city government is have those robust conversations with the residents of those neighborhoods and see if there's not a way to subsidize to insulate the noise in their homes, whether it be putting plugs around their windows, for example, a certain shrubbery, or consulting with them to see if we can limit the number of night flights, for example. We can have those conversations with residents to get their input, because it's a very complex issue when you talk about the noise around an airport.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. And now we'll move on to some lighter questions that might show the residents how you could act as the figurehead and leader of Oxnard. First to Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, then Mr. Hernandez, last to Mr. MacArthur. Who is your role model, and how will they inspire you if you become mayor? Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, that's a rough one. I would say my role model was a tag team effort. It was my mom and my dad. My mom came from very poor beginnings. She was born in Texas. Her mother was born in Mexico. My dad was a self-styled businessman, and they worked from sun up to sundown and then some, trying to provide a beautiful place for me to live, work, and recreate. So that's kind of my role model. I want to be in a city that has beautiful attributes, that has wonderful parks, has good streets, has all the things that make everybody want to live, work, or recreate here. We have a beautiful town, and I told my wife when I retired, I said, we can move anywhere we want. You know, we can sell the house and go, and she looked at me like I was a madman. And her comment was, we're here. You know, why would I want to move? And I have to agree with her. I was born and raised in Santa Barbara. I like it here better.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We'll move on to Mr. Hernandez and last to Mr. MacArthur. Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. My role model is and he will always be my grandpa. He raised me out to be an honest man, always tell the truth, and always help the one in need. Always. And I've been doing it thanks to that teaching. My grandpa was a jornalero. He worked in the fields all his life. I'm here for you, Grandpa. Pole Molina, you hear me. I'm here for you. You made this man, and I'm proud of you. Grandpa, rest in peace. And also to my family present right here, my beautiful wife, Sonia, and my kids. Please stand up, family. Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Our last person is Mr. MacArthur.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Rafael. You can see the passion and enthusiasm of all of us that want to be up here and to want to serve, right? I think it's a calling for us to want to be public servants. I know that with me, a lot of colleagues that have retired from the police department enjoy their pension and go and work. I'm still young enough, I still have a lot of enthusiasm, go and work for the sheriff's office or with another employer and make more money coupled with a pension. But my drive is to be a public servant. I gained this drive from my mother. There's a lot of good leaders I can point to, but from my mother, who was a hard worker, who helped me, who taught me a strong work ethic, to take care of neighbors, to always do the right thing. And those are core lessons we learned from our parents, from educators early on that have a significant impact on who we become as individuals later in life. And that's why I'm such a proponent on serving and helping youth to be a good role model for them, like I had others be for me.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. And last, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Oh, I'm sorry, you already went. Thank you.
There. Yeah.
Our second question, apologies. We'll go first to Mr. MacArthur, and then Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, and finally, Mr. Hernandez. What is the most surprising thing that you have learned in your campaign for mayor? Mr. MacArthur.
Yeah, the most surprising thing for me is, and it really brings emotion, how many people have come out to support me. I have a grassroots campaign. I have military families, seniors. I have students walking. I have a lot of local businesses. I have just a number of police officers and their families who have asked me for yard signs. I've had educators who I've worked with in the past. I've had teachers of mine come out to my greet meets with me that are getting behind me of all ages, because they see the enthusiasm, they see the potential that this city has. They know that I understand. My own lived realities are like many in this city. I came here, I spoke Spanish, I'm fluent in Spanish because of my grandmother. I just want to make this a city that it's a cultural destination. I easily can transcend cultures, and I just a big fan of the city, and I know I can bring a lot of element to this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. We'll move on to Mayor Pro Tem McDonald and then Mr. Hernandez. Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question again? Because there was one word I didn't understand.
Most surprising thing that you have learned in your campaign for mayor?
I'm sorry, the most what?
Surprising thing. Surprise.
Surprising.
Yeah.
You know, I think the enthusiasm of the community at large, and sometimes it seems like people don't pay any attention to what's going on in this community, and I always like to compare Oxnard to, I don't know, I'll date myself here, but the Andy Griffith Show and Mayberry, RFD, and you know, for being a larger community, there is still a huge amount of people that know everything about all the stuff that's going on here, and everybody seems to know everybody. And I find that wonderful. It's just fantastic that you can go anywhere in the city and be recognized, have a conversation with someone, and everyone seems to share the same enthusiasm and joy about their city.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And last, Mr. Hernandez.
Yes, thank you. Since I'm Mexican American, in this community, majority, if not close to 80%, speak my language, Espanol. They were so happy to see me running for mayor in this city. They said, wow, Rafael, we need somebody that is going to do the job finally. We know you for so many years. You work always with ethics, and you always helping. You always give us a hand. There is one name I'm going to mention right here. Nacho's Towing closed his business in Colonia, and he came to me, Rafael, what should I do? I instruct him how to do his business, a great business that is passing to his family. So I'm very happy and blessed that the community knows me, and that I'm a good man, and I'll always continue to be helping you and everybody in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. And our last question for the night, this might not come to a surprise who've been to all the forums. What is your favorite thing to do in Oxnard and why? First to Mr. Hernandez, then Mr. MacArthur, and finally to Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Mr. Hernandez.
My favorite thing to do in the past, not today, was to take my kids to the park, to play, to have some fun, raise them out in the nice way. I'm proud of all my kids. I'm proud of my wife to help me and raise out these beautiful kids and my grandchildren. Not now. Now we go to the beach, with the family, sometimes on the weekend, go to church, go to attend mass, take a breakfast, enjoy your family, enjoy some friends, invite friends to my apartment, or they invite me to their house, invite new friends to chat, invite them a coffee, helping the homeless. Buy me a burrito, Rafael. Yes, go ahead. Get 2 burritos, one for right now and one for later. You're going to be hungry later. This is Rafael Hernandez. I want to be your mayor. Please vote Rafael.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Next, Mr. MacArthur, followed by Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Mr. MacArthur.
Sure. Look, I'm very, very fortunate to work in this city. I had an opportunity to come in to work in the city at the age of 15, and it's given me so much. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it not for this city. The first gave me an opportunity to work as a student worker, and from there hired me as a traffic cadet and eventually a police officer. And I'm sorry my voice is going away because I've been doing so much walking precincts. But I've always subscribed to the idea that you work so that you can live your life. And I've always had that balance. The best thing that I enjoy is I still have little kids. I have a 2-year-old, a 3, and a 7-year-old. The best time for me is on Saturday mornings. I coach my daughter at soccer. I run a Shield soccer program that I created myself. It's got 400 kids not playing. And right afterwards, myself, my kids, and my family, along with friends, we either go to various restaurants every Saturday. That's our tradition. And then that Saturday night, I go back to play at Del Sol Park. I play in the Men Over 40s League. I still play soccer.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. And last, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Well, those of you that have seen my physique will understand this answer. My favorite thing to do in Oxnard is eat. And I love the variety of restaurants that we have here. My compadre and I have been going out to dinner with our families for 40 years on every Friday night. And we pick different restaurants all the time with just a wide variety of food. Whether you want Mexican or whatever, you can go down to the harbor and sit and have a glass of wine and enjoy yourself. You don't have to worry about hurricanes coming through and blowing you off the deck or tornadoes or anything else. This is a wonderful place to live. We have everything. We have the beaches, we have parks, we have just wonderful facilities where we can go to and enjoy each other's company and have a great time out.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, and that is our time for all the questions. We will now begin the 90-second closing statements from all candidates in the reverse order of the opening statements. The first candidate will be Mr. Hernandez, followed by Mr. MacArthur, and last by Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. A brief pause for right now while we get the time up, and I would like to use this break to thank the INCO Executive Board for approving these candidate forums, Mr. Adam Smith with the City of Oxnard for Forum Logistics, Ms. Martha Guillen for timekeeping tonight, the INCO for hosting, and the City of Oxnard for the use of their council chambers. We're now ready. Mr. Hernandez, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. Hello, Oxnard. I hope I can count with your vote. I will work with all my heart for the best interest of you, the citizens of Oxnard, and the children of this city. I wanted to say that my mission is only to serve you. And I also want to say that, like Mr. Reagan said, are we better off from this government today that we were 10 years ago? Those are the words from Mr. Reagan, which is one of my leaders, my favorite leaders. I wanted to thank everybody who's been supporting me. I have no endorsement because I don't want to be paying favors later on if I became mayor. The only favor I need is the sponsorship and the endorsement from the citizens of Oxnard. You are my best endorsement. If I get elected, it will be because of your electoral vote, the power of your vote, not because I'll be appointed by any government in the county of the state. I will fight this if I find out that somebody stole my candidates and your vote. I will fight it, and I have people behind me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Our next candidate will be Mr. MacArthur, followed by Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Mr. MacArthur, you have 1.5 minutes. Please begin.
Sure, thank you. First of all, thank you, everybody, for being here, for your time and effort. I know it's a lot. I can just tell you, look, I speak from the heart. I'm a very good person. I'm a compassionate person. I would challenge any of you to speak to any colleague inside the police department or anyone out here in the community. I guarantee you they will not speak ill of me. I'm a good leader, I'm a good manager, and I'm a great public servant. I'm running for the office of mayor because I want to use my talents and skills to make a difference in my community. I'm an Oxnard native and currently an Oxnard police commander with over 35 years of dedicated public service. And I'm committed to bringing my servant leadership styles and deep community ties and unwavering dedication to serve in the role of mayor. I want to establish Oxnard as a thriving cultural destination. Oxnard has a growing host of outstanding cultural offerings, including our various festivals that are here. I want to make sure that we take advantage of the prevalent culture that is here, and I want to be one of these public servants that works for everybody. I'm a person that has a lot of energy, and you have the opportunity to vote for myself. You have the opportunity to vote for the open seats, Brian's seat, down in the south end as well. You can get a really amazing council that will work very hard for you for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. And last is Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. My wife and I have lived in this city for over 40 years. We love this city. And I've lived several other places throughout the state. I like Oxnard the best. I just love the community. She loves the community. We look forward to coming home every night and just being here. I'm proud to be endorsed by a variety of different groups. A lot of labor groups have endorsed me, SEIU, Southwest Carpenters, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, LEUNA, which is the laborers union. Oxnard Police and Fire unions have endorsed me. And I think I have a lot of across the lines support. I've gotten endorsements from council members from other communities, all 5 of the Board of Supervisors, which I think speak to my ability to be a collaborator and work with other groups. It's not about passing resolutions and doing stuff. It's about having those relationships where I can pick up the phone and call someone and say, here's what I'd like to do. Here's what I'd like to see you do, and see if I can get consensus. And I think I'm very good at that. I'm excited about the opportunity to serve as your mayor. I think we are on the right track. We are doing stuff that we haven't been able to do in years, and we're doing it the right way for once. Instead of patching potholes, we're actually fixing streets and making things better. It took us a long time to get back from where we needed to be, and we're on the right track.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, and that concludes our forum for mayor. Thank you to all the candidates for participating in this forum.
Thank you.
It takes an enormous amount of time and energy to run for office, not just for yourself, but also for your family, friends, and supporters. We thank you for taking part in maintaining our democracy. We thank all the candidates for your time to speak to the voters, and good luck to you all. This is the last candidates forum for tonight and for this election season with the City of Oxnard. With the business of the INCO candidate forum now having been concluded, we'll now transition back to Chair Diana Velzi with a recommendation to recess before the special meeting portion of public comments. Thank you, and Chair Velzi.
Yeah, thank you. We'll soon open the floor for public comments. You can do that by calling in the telephone number at the bottom of your screen, the banner at the bottom of your screen. And let's take a few-minute break before we open the public comments. Thank you, candidates, for participating this evening. We will soon open the floor for public comments. You can call in by dialing the telephone number at the bottom of your screen. Okay, before we do so, I'd like to thank you all for being here today and for your active participation in this important forum. Your engagement truly highlights the strength of our community. I hope you have gained valuable insights into the candidates' platforms and their visions for our city. As we move forward, remember that your involvement doesn't end here. Stay engaged, continue to ask questions, and make your voices heard in the upcoming election. Let's take a moment to applaud the candidates for sharing their perspectives, as well as our moderators, Ronald Arroyo, whose efforts have helped illuminate these discussions. A heartfelt thank you to our cameramen, Diego Zuniga and Michael Gleason. Special appreciation goes to Ronald Arroyo again for his dedication and hard work in organizing this event. We also like to extend our gratitude to our Executive Secretary, Martha Guillen, and Adam Smith for his valuable support. Finally, thank you to our INCO members for facilitating our gathering. Thank you once again for your time and commitment to our community. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to item D, public comments pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3A. At a special meeting, a person may address the legislative body only on matters appearing on the agenda. The presiding officer will limit public comments to 3 minutes per speaker. Do we have anybody that would like to make a comment? You got to go to that, the microphone over there in the over there by the wall, the wall.
Good evening, INCO, members of the public. I'd like to remind people that we have many people running for office and that you go out and make insightful decisions on the people running for office. One of my concerns is the low test scores. The test scores in the entire Oxnard city, we have several school districts, only 20% or 25% of the students are reading or doing math at grade level. We have had at least one city council member sitting on the city council who's been an educator of one form or the other. I would encourage you to consider the candidates who are running and candidates who have educational backgrounds and hopefully gather it together so that they can develop a consensus so that INCO can work with other communities and other school districts to help raise the test scores. One of the things that we can do is encourage our neighbors in our neighborhoods to become more active in schools, because the leading cause of these low test scores is lack of parent participation based upon feedback I've got from school board members. So please, as we go forward on these elections and after the elections, start working with our schools and the school districts so we can help raise the test scores of our students. I'm 70 years old. My son has not been in school for a number of years, but that doesn't mean there aren't people who can't help other people, because we are a neighborhood council. We're here to help our neighbors. So please consider this and efforts that you might be able to do. Talk to your principal, see what you can do to help raise your neighbors, because our neighbors need our help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Is there anybody else in the, okay, here we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our INCO members, executive board, especially Mr. Arroyo, for all of the work that went into this. As someone who planned these in the past, I know it's a ton of work, and so I just want to give my appreciation. I'm here tonight. My name is Gabe Turan. I live in Fremont South and former Fremont South chair as well, and former executive board member for INCO. I'm sure the candidates didn't know we'd be doing this, but I took it upon myself to do some fact checking in real time from the audience on a few items. And so I just think that that is something that our candidates should be held to as well. I wish I had thought of it for the other ones, especially the District 3 one. So, all right. So real quickly, Mayor Pro Tem referred to permanent supportive housing as inclusionary housing. I believe he might have mixed those terms, but he can do his own self-evaluation on that. He also said concrete lasts forever. It's probably more like 30 years or several decades, certainly longer than asphalt would last in our alleys. More to the point here, Mr. Hernandez had two statements that I'd like to address. One was regarding the raising of the water rates. He stated that it was done behind closed doors. In actuality, any utility rate is done in compliance with Prop 218 and the process that comes along with that. That includes information going out to every ratepayer, informing them of the potential for the rate increase, how they can protest it, and the public meetings that will be happening regarding those rate increases. And each of those rate increases for the water ones, as were outlined in the question, happen at public meetings, and that's a matter of public record that is accessible to anybody in the public. Lastly, and again, another statement by Mr. Hernandez, he stated something along the lines that the city council raises their salaries behind closed doors. Based on what I could find in my research from my phone, council has not in the city of Oxnard had a salary or a pay increase in anything I could find dating all the way back to 2012 for the city of Oxnard, which is as far back as Transparent California goes for that city. I would imagine that it's probably not in this millennium that it's been raised. It's a base amount of $20,000 a year plus a little bit more, and that is adjusted based on if they take or decline health benefits as part of that. And I would just say that not only are none of the council members getting rich up there, and not only did they not give themselves raises behind closed doors, but this isn't even a livable wage in the city of Oxnard or in this region for that matter. And so it's truly something that people who are running for office are doing because they want to serve their community. Full-time in and out is probably double or close to double what you can get as a city council member in the city of Oxnard. So I wanted to share that. I want to thank all the candidates, and hopefully we have the voters watching this and able to follow up and vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Turan. Do we have anybody online? I believe you could raise your hand if you're on Zoom. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. So if you have any comments or question or statements, you can raise your hand. And it looks like it's, nope. Okay. Anybody else? Would you, the executive, like to add comments or anything? No. Okay. So with that, let's move to item E and adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Thank you.